I want people to understand that witchcraft doesn't have to be expensive. You know, witchcraft is all about kind of communing with nature. Spells are about using your, intentions to make positive changes in your life. All that's free. And I kind of wanted to show that you can be a witch and be broke. You don't have to have money.
Yeah, be creative,
Exactly. And because witchcraft is a craft. So therefore it's a skill, it's a creative thing. So you can be creative and be a witch. So nature's always had a special kind of role in my life, but as I got older, I started to realize just how precious nature is and just how important it was to my practice. Just being able to just go outside and smell the fresh air and just walk barefoot on the grass, or, the neighbours give you funny looks, but like when it snowed, I was out there collecting snow for snow water, and the neighbours are thinking, that's some seriously weird girl. But it's just that relationship with nature that is so important to me. As I said before, the kind of my favourite place to be is in a pine forest. And we've got a few around where I live, where I was brought up, and they're just so magical, and I still love going there. I could go every day and spend hours just sat there listening to the birds and just being with nature. And I think when it comes back to the thrifty thing, my favourite items in my craft are the things that I found outside, whether it's a pine cone or a stone or a rock, or it's those like bringing nature inside and using the energy of those things in my spell work or just ritual work.
Welcome to your journey to find true tranquility with the Tranquility Magazine podcast with your host, Jasmine Maya Royce. Today's episode featuring. You can find more information about tranquility on our website, tranquilitymagazine.com.
Today I have Lindsay, aka the Witch of the Forest, is a practitioner of eclectic witchcraft and is the witch behind the popular Instagram account, The Witch of the Forest. She has been walking her own spiritual path for over a decade and is passionate about helping and empowering witches at the beginning of their witchcraft journey. She is the author of several titles of witchcraft and astrology, including those from the Witch of the Forest Guide to series, such as Astrology Magick, Natural Magic, Earth Magic, and Tarot Magick, and her newest book, The Witch's Book of Spells, which we're excited to talk about. I'm excited to have you, Lindsay, and I always ask the first question, what is your current mantra or state of mind?
I think it would be feel the fear, but do it anyway.
Ooh.
Because this is my first podcast, and for so long when people have asked me to do podcasts, I've always said no because my anxiety took over. And I kind of gave into that. But it's come to a point in my life with this and with everything else is to kind of push myself out of my comfort zone and to do the things that make me scared, because that's the only way we're going to grow. The only way I'm going to kind of develop both as a person and as a witch. So it's kind of like, just like, give me that little push to do the things that scare me.
Correct. I mean, fear is an obstacle for so many, and it's part of our journey in life to conquer the things, especially the ones that we fear the most, because you exactly worded it wisely, that it is an evolution and it's a test of our skills. I'm proud of you for being here and having the time to conquer this journey, and I'm happy that I am the one that's going to help you on this. So I hope this is a good experience for you. I wanted to ask you kind of to define how you became and got into being the Witch of the Forest and explain a little bit about your background in this.
I became a witch when I was 23. I'm 40 now, so it's been quite a while. And I kind of, the Witch of the Forest thing started out because at the time I was in a relationship where the person that I was in a relationship with did not approve of my witchcraft. And it was really, really difficult. So I created an Instagram account to kind of meet like-minded people, to learn and to talk about witchcraft in kind of a safe place. I didn't put my picture up. I chose a name where no one had would guess it was me. So I was kind of hiding behind all that. And I chose the Witch of the Forest because I love forests. It's a place where I feel at peace and really comfortable. So it was kind of like, right, the forest, it's got to have it somewhere in there. So the Witch of the Forest, it became. It was a safe place, and a lot of people that I met back then, I'm still friends with now. I've met so many amazing people. So it's been a fantastic journey, but it didn't. A lot of witches say they're in the broom closet, which means they don't feel that they're able to come out and be honest about their witchcraft practices. And I was definitely in the broom closet for 10 years. But in 2017, things changed for me, whole life changed for me. And I was able to come out of the broom closet and be honest with the people. My parents knew, my friends knew, but there was other people that had no idea. And that's when the Witch of the Forest account kind of switched from being a safe place to kind of being like educational, like, you know, sharing knowledge, helping witches that are just starting their own witchcraft journey, because it's really difficult. You know, it can be overwhelming. People don't know where to start. So I wanted to kind of help them along that journey because I know how hard it was for me. And I became a witch kind of at a time where it wasn't as easy to get hold of books. It was just harder because, like I said, you couldn't get hold of books, not necessarily. There was a lot of things online at that point. You know, it was, witchcraft was seen as like the occult, which was seen as kind of negative, I suppose, by a lot of people. So yeah, that's how it all started, really.
I'm proud of you to talk about your journey in a way, because I can relatively mirror it in certain examples in my life that resonate to what your experiences are. And also the fact that I lived in England for over a decade. And when I talked about unusual kind of abstract thoughts and practices and states of mind, it wasn't really reciprocated or understood. They just think you're woo-woo or weird or unusual or whatever type of box casting that they would put you in. Like, I mean that in a way that they don't know anything that's about the abstract, and it's fear-driven as well. But I think I was raised in another state in California where that was more of an open concept, that it wasn't really the same. So I hid it, like you're talking about, for years while I was in London, because it wasn't really understood. And I didn't really want to have those deep chats with other people that weren't really into that idea. So it's like, okay, when I started my journey, I was 16, and I understood that exactly what you talked about. You reference a book that I want you to delve into. In the back of your book that you knew was creation, you listed a lot of books because you just talked about it. It's harder to get the books to understand. I was 16 at this time, and I'm in my 40s too. So I understand that reaching out to find certain items, and also being younger, it's expensive. So how are you going to find the money to get these items, herbs, and crystals? You speak about one that you mentioned, the Thrifty Witch book of spells by Warren Maple. And I think that was an interesting one that you chose to kind of talk about. You want to expand upon that?
I guess it's just what you said about, like you were saying, being 16, you didn't have the money to buy all these things. And I think there's that kind of belief that witchcraft is expensive to practice, and it can be. I mean, there are so many things that you can buy on these witches stores, occult stores, that, you know, are really expensive, but not everyone has that money to buy, you know, like you said, the herbs, the crystals and things. So it was like, I want my witchcraft to be accessible, and like referencing that book, I want people to understand that witchcraft doesn't have to be expensive. You know, witchcraft is all about kind of communing with nature. Spells are about using your, you know, intentions to make positive changes in your life. All that's free. And I kind of wanted to show that you can be a witch and be broke. You don't have to have money.
Yeah,
You
get
know,
creative, you know?
exactly. And because witchcraft is a craft. So therefore it's a skill, it's a creative thing. So you can be creative and be a witch and not have the money to buy all these things. Just have a couple of crystals or something, or even just like the herbs from your kitchen that you bought from the store that are dried. There are so many different ways you can save money. It doesn't have to be like stupidly expensive.
Yes. And you are correct. It's about the practice and kind of creating the space and all those elements. When I was 16, they did not have any occult stores or anything like that in the area that I was raised. And I was like, well, we're just gonna, and internet was out, but it was like primal at this time that you didn't order things like Amazon will solve most of the problems now, but it was a different period and it just resonated when you're talking about it. And then I wanted you to expand a little bit more about your practices in your relationship to nature and how that kind of clicked for you.
I mean, as a child, I've always had a special relationship with nature. I remember on a Sunday morning, me and Dad going out for walks in the local forests, nature trails near the lakes, things like that. So nature's always had a special kind of role in my life. But as I got older, I started to realize just how precious nature is and just how important it was to my practice. Just being able to just go outside and smell the fresh air and just walk barefoot on the grass, or the neighbors give you funny looks, but like when it snowed, I was out there collecting snow for snow water, and the neighbors are thinking that's some seriously weird girl. But it's just that relationship with nature that is so important to me. As I said before, the kind of my favorite place to be is in a pine forest. We've got a few around where I live and where I was brought up, and they're just so magical, and I still love going there. I could go every day and spend hours just sat there listening to the birds and just being with nature. And I think when it comes back to the thrifty thing, my favorite items in my craft are the things that I found outside, whether it's a pine cone or a stone or a rock, or it's those like bringing nature inside and using the energy of those things in my spell work or just ritual work or just everyday things. You know what I mean? It's very important to me.
Yeah, I believe that it's very important to understand the value of nature in anyone's life, no matter what they practice or what they believe. I always say belief and faith are the two things that are undeniably important, no matter what area and what you resonate with. But nature is a sublime teacher. And when you get quiet enough, that I was lucky that I lived by the redwood forest, like the oldest forest, one of them in the world, that it's more like the life that an entire tree has lived behind people that have a tiny speck of timeline comparatively. And nature has that development. When you're in flow with nature, it will give you like little gifts. I always talk about crows, that you can like give gifts and they return treasures for you. But it's also a very important thing to understand being part of Mother Earth, or anything that resonates to you, is part of finding your balance in life. Spoke about energy, and I want you to describe your interpretation of energy and how it's important for your witching journey.
I mean, everything has its own energy, its own feel, if you like. They're from Mother Nature, and it's that energy as witches that we work with in our craft. Whether it's we're doing a protection spell and we decide that we want the energy of a piece of black tourmaline or black obsidian, it's that energy, that specific imprint that item has, and every item has it. As we get to learn what those kind of energies are, so then we can bring them into our craft in an appropriate way, whatever that might be.
Yeah, I mean, understanding the tools that you chose, you expand about that in your book, kind of the newest one that you created, and the idea that you resonate to. You don't have to go with everybody's idea of a spell in its own. You can create your own, and you give a very great dictionary in the book about stones, candles, runes, and other items that you can work with in your casting. And I love that you expanded upon it to not limit it. And you want to talk about how you kind of evolved through learning spells from other books or interpretations, how you kind of developed your own.
I think it's all well and good when you're presented with a spell that has been written by someone else. It's a fantastic place to start. But when you evolve as a witch, that's when you can start like looking at a spell and thinking, well, I'm going to miss this bit out because it just doesn't feel right to me in my practice, or I can add this little bit. And I suppose as a witch, as you evolve in your practice, you get to know the energies of the things that we've been talking about and how they can be used in a spell or a ritual or something that works better for you. We're all very different as witches, like we are as people, and our craft are equally as different. You know, I don't think there are two witches that are the same. And that's what I mean about when I mention about the book, as far as, you know, don't be frightened of writing your own spells or adapting a spell that you find in a book, because it's how you develop as a witch. You develop your knowledge, you develop how you feel the energies of the things. So then you think, all right, well, that's got a protective energy, you know, that's, you know, good for protection spells. But also it's like the correspondence that you spoke about in the back of the book, the kind of general correspondence, but those can change depending on the culture of the witch and the country they come from, just their personal practice. And it's kind of good to make your own list of correspondence so you can use them in your spells, because just because one thing is something to one witch doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same to another witch. So it's about developing your personal practice and your personal relationship with these things as well, depending on culture as well. That changes it as well. If you're from a different culture, it's great that it is different and there is no right or wrong way, you know.
It's true. I think you are right in a way that every witch in their own power has different energies, different focus, different like region, different upbringing. So it could be different for everyone to create something of their own.
Yeah.
And then knowledge is what I say, the epitome of power. And I've read through every biblical context that you can find. I had the luxury being raised in a family that you could explore. Like Buddhist concepts are part of witchcraft. Physics is part of everything. And also in the religious context, there is a lot of multitudes that are ceremonial and how you celebrate a ceremony, which is part of witchcraft in itself, but it's more earthbound in a way that it resonates with the earth that you live on. So I'm excited about the fact that more people that I've seen, they're developing their craft in certain ways, and it's become more public in a concept because of the internet or social media. I believe that you got a plethora of resonance when you started your TikTok. What is your TikTok account's name?
It's the Witch of the Forest 1. Someone beat me to the Witch of the Forest.
So in that, it's about resonating with a worldview rather than a minute area. You have a couple books, and I want to ask about astrology and the importance of it for you and how you explored astrology as part of your learning and teaching.
I think rather new to astrology in the kind of sense that I've been practicing a witch since I was 23, but I've only found astrology within the last 5 or 6 years. It's certainly important in my craft now. I love to bring in like astrology into my spells. Again, everything has a energy, and even if it's something as simple as, you know, I don't know, like with Taurus, I'm a Taurus, very
My
stubborn.
brother's a Taurus.
Yeah, we were meant to be really patient, but I'm really not. So you want to kind of embody the energy of Taurus. So say it is patience. So you would carve in the Taurus sign onto a candle, like a green candle, because Taurus is an earth sign and green, so it kind of all comes together. So that's kind of how it started with me, about bringing astrology into my practice and how it became important. Like, I loved learning about the different astrological signs that are associated with each tarot card. They all have one. It kind of helps to deepen your understanding of tarot and how to use it, and read for others, read for yourself. So kind of astrology came into my craft in those kind of ways. And I like astrology dice. They're really cool.
I've never heard of those. I know you have your own tarot deck that's out, and I'm a Gemini, so I'm also all kinds of conversation and people. So mostly Gemini as mine. But in that, like, I've done some tarot reading. I would marry her with a numerology. So in the tarot deck, I'm a magician. What are you? Do you know?
The Hierophant.
Okay.
Which really makes sense, actually, because it's about, traditions, and I'm very traditional in a lot of ways. And it's about like religion, which was kind of like, I was a Christian before, so it kind of mirrors a lot of my life experiences. But religion is also a form of belief, and belief are important to me, even though it's not a Christian faith anymore. It's witchcraft, so it really fits.
I think what we're speaking about, so the listeners understand, numerology, I use my birthday and deciphered what my number was. And from the number, I pulled my tarot deck so people would understand that you can do it yourself, and you can use some of Lindsay Squirrel's books in order to interpret some of these things in your astrology as well, and her tarot deck that mirrors this. But also knowing your tarot card specifically on your life journey helps a little bit with understanding your abilities and your numbers, how they resonate with you. But I agree with you that sometimes you come from a different background that, evolves in a different way. And what I loved about when I was exploring religions, because I was able to do so at 16, and I was like you, that I was more the Christian side, that I went to, Sunday church and stuff like this, but I was given a long leash in order to explore, because my background is mixed. My father is from Nordic, so we're Astro, and then my mother is more on the Christian side. So I was able to more explore different things that resonated with me. And the reason I chose Wicca is because it was about, the definition is a wise woman. Most of the biblical understandings do not have a presence for women in general of being craft and smart, and every kind of context you can imagine. And did that kind of reflect in your journey, how you kind of fall into Wicca as well?
I mean, I'm not Wiccan.
Sorry, I should redefine.
No. But for me, Wicca is about a neo-pagan religion, and it's not just about women, because yes, most people are witches, but men can be witches too. And it's this thing where people think that if you're a male witch, you're a warlock. And it's like, well, if you're gonna go there, warlock means oathbreaker. So that's not a really nice thing to be called. So it's like you're a witch whether you're a male or a female. And it's the same with, for me, it's kind of, you're a witch. I did start with Wicca. I think a lot of people do, because it's an easier transition into it. More books are written about it. You can get hold of it. It's
Remind you, I was 16 at this time, so a very long time ago when this was like available.
Scott Cunningham did a lot for Wicca at the beginning. I still love his books. But yeah, my craft kind of evolved to just being a witch. I dabbled in traditional witchcraft for a while. I honor Freya from the Nordic tradition.
Yes, I read that in your book, that I was like, my mother's name is very similar to that one.
Really? I mean, I didn't always like work with deities in my craft. For a long time, I was kind of, it just didn't feel right for me. But it was the last 5 years or so that I've started to want to Freya and build up a relationship with her. Been amazing. But you don't have to, you do not have to use deities and commune with deities and honor them and anything in your craft to be a witch. To me, a witch is someone who has that special relationship with nature, who casts spells and rituals. So it's open to anybody,
Mhm.
which I love, you know. And like you said about women, it's very women positive, where some other religions are not quite so women positive. And I
Mhm.
definitely felt like that with the Christian faith. For me, I'm not, you know, saying that that's not the same for others, but for me, there was
What you
like,
believe is important, no matter what it is.
yeah, and it for me, I believe that I just needed more, you know,
Mm.
and it just wasn't deep enough for me, and it just didn't feel right at the end of the day. But witchcraft did, and it certainly felt nourishing parts of me that other faiths didn't. And I've read about other faiths,
Mhm.
maybe not in detail, but I kind of dabbled with witchcraft when I was about 14. Did a few spells, like a lot of people do, and it, you know, I read into Wicca, but it wasn't the right time for me, you know.
Mm.
Although I did still feel very connected to nature in a different way, you know, since I was 14, reading more about witchcraft, but it just wasn't the time to start actually practicing it fully and embracing it in my life.
Yeah.
That came later when I was 23.
Makes
Um,
sense because I think when I was in my early 20s, I was doing more of the reading on different things. I got into it at 16, did most of the readings on witchcraft and Wicca, which was more available at that time. And then later in my 20s, I started reading more biblical concepts. And then I got into Buddhism and Tao and all kinds of broader reaching Eastern traditions. But in that, it kind of was more of an open paradigm that it was available in different ways. But it is about the state of mind no matter what. And you talk about like energy being an important concept for every craft. And this is important for every belief that energy has a very deep creative power. And you want to explore kind of the idea of your context of doing a spell. Are you better at outside because you're a nature witch, or do you have like an altar which is behind you, or what one resonates best for you?
Both, you know, it depends kind of what the spell is. Sometimes I've done it outside if it's been nice and quiet, just felt right. And then other times I'm using my altar behind me. So it really is kind of spell dependent on how I'm feeling,
Yeah.
uh, which is great because it's nice to have the option to be with nature, but also if it feels right to have like a sacred space, such as an altar, a workspace or something, then I use that too. And I mean, an altar can be anything. It doesn't have to be like mine. It can look like anything. It can be literally a table with a few candles on it. And I think
Mhm.
that's the beauty of witchcraft for me, is that again, it's like it's totally up to you and what feels right for you as a witch and what resonates with you. It doesn't have to be the same as everyone else.
True. You're pulling on something that I would understand is about the discovery of you, which happens in your early 20s for a lot of people. You know, you can make critical decisions and be a true form of self around 25. That's when your frontal lobe kind of becomes the adult, so to speak. You've spent enough time away from your parents that you've explored life. You maybe went to uni or university or moved out of where you are raised. That is the exploration of finding the truth of you. And that is about that time. And you can end up like your experience about a relationship that wasn't really focused and you didn't know how to find yourself because you're in a duality. And then leaving that would also make you redefine the evolution of where you are at this point rather than the one you were at before, like the relationship or something like that. But timing is always important for me for anything that's a craft of any kind. It's about timing, and also life is about timing. Sometimes it's not the right time yet, or it becomes the right time later. You learn things that you want to learn, and then you discover that you don't need that right now, but maybe eventually you'll need it later. But
Yeah.
I wanted you to talk about, you have Witch of the Forest Guide to. So where would you suggest someone start off their journey into witchcraft on your book trilogy, or well, now it's more than a trilogy. So what would you suggest for someone that was loving to explore this a little bit more with their first book purchase?
I'd say Natural Magic. To be fair, Natural Magic and Earth Magic were the first and second books. Kind of, I wish I could put them together and make one big book, because it's kind of the basics of witchcraft and the basics of spell work, just everything I think you need to know to lay a foundation to start practicing witchcraft, or to start kind of not even practicing it, but just kind of feeling it out to see if it's for you. Everything that I couldn't fit into the first book got put into the second one, because I felt it was so important that people needed to kind of know that. And it's things like, you know, how to set up an altar, the difference between witchcraft, Wicca and paganism, the meaning of crystals, the meaning of the colours, different colours and the meanings of those, how to rework your own spell, how to write your own spells, things like sigils, divination. So look at tarot and all the methods of divination like oracle cards, pendulum, scrying. So it's kind of a real easy to digest, like basic of where to start. But definitely Natural Magic, because it's part of the journey. It's part of my journey too, you know, because I remember how it felt when I was like searching and reading and thinking about it. So it kind of brought back a lot of wonderful memories of how it was for me, and then how other people would feel on that journey too. So that kind of helped to guide my writing. I wanted people to have the knowledge to hand that I necessarily, and you didn't necessarily have to hand at the time questioning. So that was kind of the motivation for the book. Well, all the books really, whether it's, you know, astrology, tarot, they're all, you know, beginner's guides too, hopefully easy to digest.
That's important. And then I want to caveat by saying it's also about white magic for the most part. And you want to define the difference so people would understand what you resonate towards if they are naive or new to the idea of witchcraft, which way you're leaning in a way, and the protection of what you're creating.
Yeah, I mean, white magic is associated with positivity, and like the Wiccan rule is none. So kind of, even though I'm not a Wiccan and a lot of people are not Wiccans, they still hold to that, you know, because it's morality, isn't it?
Yes.
I wanted to kind of do the whole white magic thing in my books, because when people start talking about grey magic or dark magic, they are scared because they don't know what it is associated with the evil, bad, misfortune, all the rest of it, the devil, which even though is a Christian concept, people still, you know what I mean?
He's still
really
in the tarot deck too, and it's like a way that it's also death and rebirth, different.
exactly, yeah, you know, and that's kind of actually good kind of leading on to, yes, I do white magic spells, I suppose, as you can kind of put them in.
You touch on morality a little bit in your book. That's why we're discussing it a little bit further for people that are not really.
Yeah. Morality is whatever you feel is right, I guess, you know, at the end of the day. But you've got to do what feels right to you. And there are some, you know, dark witches out there, or grey witches, who like to have the balance of a bit of both, you know, do you hex or curse? You know, well, some people have cursed, and some people may find that they feel it is a good reason to do so, you know, whether they're trying to protect themselves or a family member or something. But that's down to them at the end of the day. Morality is down to them in witchcraft, and we shouldn't judge. I think that's the other thing as well. People judge. So if they're from one camp, I've seen on social media, if they're in the white magic camp, they'll judge the people who do hex and curse and dark magic. But those that do dark magic will judge the people and the white magic camp, because they always say, oh, light and love and all this. But there's more to life than that, if you can step. Because
it's always about a balance, finding a balance.
Exactly. You know, there are dark and light forces in the world. So it's totally about what you feel is right, and we shouldn't judge the other side, if you can say that there's a side, because like you said, it should be a balance.
It's the inevitable, like understanding your exploration and the truth of what you are trying to be inclined towards. And you're right that there is a balance in the middle. Like sometimes you need a protection spell because someone can be, I would say, withdrawing your energy unawares, or something that's like not a hex per se, but something aligned with that for someone else doing that for you to navigate either a protection spell or something to keep you safe and safety to other people as well is important to understand. But I always say that, well, in my experience, ask for comes back threefold. So whatever you put out there is going to return 3 times over, but that's maybe an antiquated style, but it would be more the idea that, if you are reaching for something else, prepare yourself from what's going to come back in a way. That if you have, and you're very practiced being a gray witch, would be easier that you're prepared for all the other backlash or concepts by. And then dark magic is one that you are right that I would resonate with the fear option, that maybe your upbringing and your context and the fear you're competing and your inner demons is more the issue than will be exposed in your outer concepts. So like inner work is part of your mental establishment and how you go through a therapeutical practice or understanding your background. But most of us have inner demons, and the inner demons are our own internal fears rather than external, but they will mirror each other out. So you will see more of these demons take form in life. And that's why people maybe doing dark magic are more resonated to protecting themselves from themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I also pick up on your point about there is consequences to magic.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you send out, I mean, the threefold law is Wiccan, but other people call it karma. It comes in many forms.
I call it karma now.
But it comes in many forms, and in many traditions, people just call it something different, but it's essentially the same. But it's like, whatever you put out, you will get back in some way, whether it's a week away, a day away, 3 months away, whatever, it will come back. I do believe in karma. And I know a lot of witches that don't believe in the threefold law.
True, there's a lot.
So it's kind of one of those things again, that it's not a witch thing that every witch believes in. So it's interesting to see when people do black magic, like you say, they're into protection, because obviously they're protecting themselves from whatever may come back to them. But then if they don't believe in karma or the threefold law in the first place, they kind of don't think that
it's going to have any effect on it. But I was like, why? What are you fearful of then? It was in my truth. It's like you're fearful of everybody doing other things to you, but you're still getting whatever word you want to term it. Words have power. And I've always resonated with that no matter what it is. It doesn't really, words have power. Words behind meaning has power. Emotions have more power. So when you kind of dissect into the fear and the concepts behind it, it will create itself unbeknownst to you. But sometimes if I have an altercation with someone, then I'm like, ooh, wow, you're mean, rude, whatever. And I was like, I'm just going to let that go, because I know karma will catch up to you no matter how bad it was. It's like, I don't have to worry about you because I'm not worried about me. Like, I will cleanse myself of whatever energy you just impacted on me when we had a small-ish, or you run into someone you don't even know that's just rude that day. And I was like, okay, I'm good. Like, I just cleanse self and let it go. And then I move on to something else. It's like, if you're that mean or mad, you could have a bad day or a bad life or something else. Your karma is already living. You just only know how to project that into your moments. And I was like, you're already living with karma. If you're, you can treat people bad because you just, but whatever term you want to classify it as is also people's belief and meaning and faith. Those are 3 things that you will never forget about, no matter what area and journey you took. So in that, I wanted you to expand a little bit about Because right now we're in a interesting concept, a little astrology tidbits when you're saying moon phases and you touched on, planetary aspects, and we had an eclipse previously in September. What do you think is the biggest takeaway for this seasonal fall and transition of time?
Well, I mean, we're entering into fall in the northern hemisphere because there's lots of other southern hemisphere witches. So in the northern
True.
hemisphere,
Yes.
we're entering into fall. We're moving it towards Halloween, which is the witches' new year. We move closer and closer. The veil does lift. It's not just something that suddenly just comes up at Halloween. It's lifting so gradually as we get towards Halloween. So communication with spirits are easier, and also people are spirits that may come towards, whether it's our loved ones or something, that kind of is an easier thing. So when it comes to the eclipse, eclipses are chaotic times in terms of energy and astrology, because it's like most witches I know won't cast any spells during the eclipse because the energy is so unpredictable. So therefore, if you kind of do a spell, it could mean that the result is unpredictable, and it could be good, it could be bad. You don't know, and that's kind of the point. So people tend not to do spells at this time, and I'm one of
a tarot card,
I'll read my tarot cards, and that's probably the limit. But some witches don't even do that, which is fine. Again, it's their personal practice, and it's what's right for them. I personally have never had an issue with tarot cards in the eclipse.
Hey,
I want to touch wood, that old saying of kind of just for good luck, because I probably
sometimes it affects you when you think it affects you, and that's the difference about energy and understanding. Like, oh, I'm already worried about this, and it won't really take or transpire at that moment. So it is what I love about witchcraft is it's kind of your own personal journey that you didn't really need anyone to decide.
I love that.
Like, I'll pick what I want, and I resonate with what I want to build with what I want, and not really selfish, but I learned from some deep work in my own journey at aspects of your inner work for self about the idea that your journey is a creation of your journey, and it doesn't have to be your ideas, your thoughts, and your weird could be your own, and it doesn't need everybody else to understand. It's your own journey in life. You are the curator, the narrator, and the harborer of your own journey. Protect it, make it safe for you, share it with few. I call it the roots of your tree is part of your friendship, and those roots are your foundation. They should know some of it from you. And, other things, leaves will blow with the wind, and they won't be around for every season, but a branch has been here for longer. So an intermediate friendship and connection, because sometimes Wicca and witchcraft is also having a coven, but it's not really relevant that you can have your own journey with your own understandings. And, you're talking about different elements that resonate with you, and knowing who you are is part of that journey. And I think a really wise one to understand.
Definitely. Absolutely.
So I always ask 2 questions at the end of every episode. So I would like to ask you, what was the best advice you've ever received?
Slow down. I'm as my star sign would suggest, as a Taurus, I'm a bull in a china shop all over. I'm busy. I don't take time for rest. Self-care isn't necessarily a thing I do very well. I do it, but as well as I should. So I remember when I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia back in 2010, and someone said, just slow down. You need to slow down. You need to take life at your own pace and not feel you have to run at the pace of life, especially now things have changed with your health. It's just move at your own pace, look after yourself, and just slow the hell down, because it's unsustainable. If you don't look after yourself, you don't it's like you can't pour from an empty cup. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so true, you know, so you have to fill that cup, you have to nurture yourself. And so much so if you've got a health problem, and this is the same for everybody, if you don't slow down sometimes and nurture yourself and learn to move at your own pace rather than at the pace that life is kind of moving you at,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be empty, and you're going to start to feel it emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big wake-up call to kind of change and adapt
Mm-hmm.
to my current situation. And that's always stayed with me. When I'm too busy, I hear this little voice in my head, slow down. But you know, because it's
Your
such a
inner
different,
spirit guides are reminding you, so to speak.
yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
guess that's the truth. Like a deep concept to remind everyone out there that patience is a very vital thing. I always say kids will teach you that if you haven't learned. I'm don't have that responsibility, but I have to remind myself because where I live is a fast-paced society. And it would reflect exactly what you're talking about. Too fast-paced, too overwhelmed, too fatigued, too workaholic concepts that it's part of why I created Tranquility was about this. And how to heal yourself, take care of your body, that it's your own temple. You only get one of these for this journey. So make sure you treat it with the respect and the care that it needs, because
absolutely.
your inner things and also your body itself will remind you, if you're not paying attention, that you need something, to eat something, to have a nap, to rest, to take a bath, anything to ground you. And all of those elements are so important, but everyone forgets sometimes. Anyone else
Yeah,
that has kids the kids will take everything you need, or a partner or something else, or your parents now would everything you got you give out, but you have nothing, to you're depleted, that you're lacking in self, that you don't take care of you first. Because it's like that seatbelt joke that I always say, like you have to put your own mask on first before you mask anyone else.
that's true. Because at the end of the day, you know, if you don't look after yourself, how are you meant to take care of your kids? How are you meant to take care of parents, you know, job, anything in life, you know, that takes energy away from you? You've got to kind of nurture yourself and build that energy up within you to be able to help others and give.
Yeah. I mean, giving is part of giving, but you have to make sure you have enough to give. So in that, my last question is always, and you're kind of reflecting it today because this is your first podcast experience. So what is the hardest lesson that you've ever learned? And I mean this, I don't really like the word failure, but I always ask like something that you tried and it may be not successful, or it was a learning lesson rather. So what kind of story is in your life that has taught you something that's very valuable to take from?
When I was 18 in the UK, that's the age that we go to university. I went to university like, you know, the same, you know, all the people that were 18, and I lasted 2 weeks. And at the time I was devastated. Oh my, you know, I wanted to go to university. I wanted to, you know, learn. I wanted a career. And I couldn't last the university experience because I guess I was a homebody. I
Very Taurus
was
of
too
you.
sensitive. Well, exactly. Everything about me actually is exactly why I came home. I mean, when I say sensitive, I actually don't mean that, because I hate that phrase. You know, people are, oh, you choose. So I shouldn't have said that, but I
I
was
understand
quite
what you meant by it because I did it. Empathic,
yeah,
sometimes hyper attuned to other people's experience, maybe.
right. Well, that's helpful because yeah, emotional is the right word, and it just didn't feel right. And when I came home, it was a disaster. I'd failed. It was the worst thing ever. How is my life going to be? Now I've failed and I've not been able to get the career I once planned. Like, you know, you
Yeah.
catastrophize, and it was really bad. But actually, it made me realize that not everything happens in the way that you expect it to happen or the way you think it should happen.
Mm.
Because I went out into the world, I got a job, just did just random jobs really until I moved down south with my husband.
Hmm.
Then I decided it was the right time, and I went back to university and I got my BA and I got my MA, and I actually started a PhD, but that health wise I couldn't finish. But it just made me realize that not everything happens in your own concept of time and the way it should happen, and that actually you should go with the flow a little bit more and not try and force things, because if you try and force things, it's never going to work, or it's going to feel awful and have a really bad effect on you mentally, emotionally, physically. You're going to feel it if you're trying to force something that's not right.
True.
So yeah.
Well, I'm proud of you and your journey, and it seems like you've conquered the idea that it is about timing, and timing is a relative concept, that it's not always the right time when you start a journey, but you can always go back when you have a different form and a different lifestyle and a different you that was willing and ready. And that's the thing is, timing, you can't force anything if you're not ready. And sometimes life will tell you that you should be ready and you should already do it. But if you're not ready, you know in your soul somewhere that it's probably not that time. And it doesn't mean you don't have the time later to go back and revisit it. And now you have almost 3 degrees. So, that's a caveat that you are successful in, uni like 3 times over. So you can give yourself an applause for your ability to dabble into something that you felt like you failed at the initial start. So proud of you. And I'm so happy to have you today. Lindsay Squire is AKA the Witch of the Forest, a practitioner of eclectic witchcraft and the witch behind the popular Instagram account, The Witch of the Forest. And her new book is available now, The Witch's Book of Spells, and you can pick it up. But also she suggested her natural magic or earth magic to start your journey if you're new to the idea of exploration on witchcraft. I applaud you and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please subscribe and add your questions to our Q&A. We want to give a thank you to our team for their effort in creating every episode and our content at tranquilitymagazine.com.